So today we're basically just going to be starting from ground zero. We've got a lot of body work to do. I'm relatively familiar with body work, but nothing crazy in my past with fiberglass cars. So it just looks pretty straightforward. It's a main body and then you got all the parts riveted down to it. So there's a lot of rivets we're going to have to drill out, pop those off. And then the first real thing I need to tackle is the car is a federal spec car and I want it to be a Euro car. They're much better looking, obviously, as most cars are. With the Euro spec versus the federal spec, but the rear bumper is going to be the hardest part. It has 6 mounting points for the federal, and the Euro is just a couple bolts that run through the back of the fiberglass. So we're going to have to fill all those and re-drill. That's probably the biggest obstacle besides just the vast amount of sanding that we have to do. So we're going to start with that and just kind of see how it goes. Okay, somebody please tell me this is normal. So I was on SJ looking at the cost of these like little rubber gaskets and they were pretty astronomical and I couldn't figure out why, but I think I know now. So this looks like a side marker that's probably bolted on the other side, right? It is. And then for some reason it's hardwired to the wiring harness so you can't pull it out. I'm gonna have to like snip it or something, but this right here is not attached to anything. There's a lip right here on this rubber piece, and this pulls off, and it's held in by this ridge right here that just sits in this rubber gasket and kind of clings on. And then from there, these plastic pieces also just sit in this little rubber gasket. So basically this whole side marker is held on by this ridge inside this little rubber gasket. And then if we go look on the other side, this one has already been taken off. And then these little plastic bits just come right out. So this whole thing is literally just held together with friction from this rubber gasket. I don't understand. All right, it's time for another update. I can say I'm genuinely doing everything I can to not have to get to sanding this thing. Bodywork is my least favorite thing in the world, but we have most of this interior stripped out. When the car goes to paint, I just don't really want to mess with them getting any of the interior painted on or anything. So one of the things that was surprising me the most about inside of here is the seat mounts. Now, I know the car is very thin fiberglass and it's kind of spongy, but I was expecting some sort of metal reinforcement under here to get the seat held in. Obviously for safety reasons. The seat belt bolt is really nice and sturdy, but this is just so flimsy that even when I put my weight on it right here, I can feel it flexing, maybe this much. So with all 4 mounts, I guess it holds the seat well. You're not going to fall through it, but I genuinely am afraid to think of what would happen if somebody got in a crash with one of these cars. It's just, I mean, it's what you got to do to be lightweight, and I like it that way, but it's pretty shocking. And as of now, I pretty much have every trim piece or thing that needs to come off the car in order to paint it done. We have all the taillights out, we have the license plate surround out, we have all the waistline trim off the whole car taped up on the wall right there so it doesn't lose its shape. Windows out, we have this guard out, we have this I guess, beauty cap right here. I forget what they call it. And then the next thing I have to do is remove this trim piece. And you would think it'd be a simple thing. Now, I'm here to prove you wrong. There are rivets all the way down it. But one of the other things I was looking at is just, this is probably the thinnest fiberglass I've ever felt. I mean, it's genuinely less rigid than a piece of cardboard. I mean, I guess it does its job. Its only reason to be here is to hold the door card up, and this just to hold the, like the door lock mechanism. But I guess the theme of everything is just thin fiberglass. Like genuinely shockingly thin fiberglass. All right, next up is the front splitter. So I really wanted to take this whole assembly off because it is attached to the radiator, but the guy who's painting the car said that it has to run and drive to be able to get it in and out of his shop. So I pulled this down, and pleasant surprise, the radiator looks literally brand new, fans look brand new, but I had to pull this section off because of this little chip. So on this splitter, it's supposed to come all the way out to here, and that was gone. So I had to pull this down. It was real sketchy because this is super thin and easy to crack, and it's bonded all the way around and down. And then, just like everything else in the car, a couple rivets here. So I popped those out. This is a replacement. Looks like it's got a little spider cracks here and there. This is the best we can get though, so this is going on. I had to notch a couple pieces here and here for the drill to sit in for these tabs, and then I've got to drill 2 holes, and then we're going to use just a couple dabs of panel bond and then put some new rivets on, suck this thing back up to the car. And I don't really care that the painter won't be able to get up under there. It's never going to be seen. It's going to be blocked. As long as he can get down to this portion right here, which this won't be blocking, I'm good to go. Got my panel bond here. This is left over from when I had an Alpha 4C last year and I did a bunch of body work on. This is some serious stuff. This is tougher than nails. It's also very expensive. So since if I ever have to take this back off again, I do not want to have to mess with that stuff. So we're just going to use kind of like little spot welds along it. Maybe put 3 or 4, probably 4 or 5 bits on here. And one thing I just despise that I've had to do so much on this car is drilling out rivets. I hate doing it. But one thing I love doing is putting in rivets. So we get to do the fun part now that the hard part's done. Another update here. You'll notice that there is no window or window frame. I had to take that off in order to get this trim piece off. Tiny little piece causing that much pain in the ass. I'm grabbing the piece right now so I can kind of show you what's going on. So this is like the weather stripping seal bit, and there are like a little nuts here. There was one right there that I broke off because it was rusted, so I'm gonna have to buy a new one and one there. So let me get the direction right. This sits here and it kind of slides into those little slots there. But in order to get to that, the glass has to come out. In order for the glass to come out, the whole frame has to come out. So there's like nuts here, here, and then one's buried way back in here, there, and then one right there behind the wire, and then you got your others there and there. So that was a pain in the ass to take out, but now we have the door stripped. I'm contemplating taking it off for the paint job, just so the painter can get in here. Not sure yet. I'll contact him and see what he wants, but we have a fully stripped car on this side. But the fun bit about doing that door is now I have to do it again over here. So here's a better look. Trim sandwiched against the window. The trim around has to come off to pull the window out. So got to undo all those bolts there. and they have shims in them as well, just like most things on these types of cars. Let's see if I can find one. There we go. So it's shimmed, so I have to remember and document how many and where they go and all that kind of stuff, and then mark all the spots with a marker. That way it will go back on the same way, and I can have peace of mind. And now it's time for my least favorite part about this whole project, the bodywork. I've already got a little bit done. I wanted to do some testing to figure out what I wanted to do before making any documentation of it, but you can see that I have a couple panels taken pretty much down, and then I have some that are still in their original state. So what I've been running into is this paint is really, really bad. Like, it's bad enough that you can catch an edge on a lot of this stuff where it's completely gone through. And then up here, it's flaking, and there's cracks everywhere. If I can get this zoomed in a little bit further, let's find a good spot to demonstrate. So if we look here, see all these little cracks? That is all the way through the paint, through the primer, and almost to the fiberglass. And that is fortunately only present on anything that the sun was able to hit from the top. So all these panels, roof, the bonnet, the hood, and then like the fenders and right here in front of the window cards, those have all been damaged pretty bad. But if you go down here, this paint, I could literally polish out and it'd be presentable. So what I'm gonna do is everything on the top has to be sanded all the way down, almost to like right at the edge of the fiberglass without cutting through to it. And then down here, I really just have to scuff up and get prepared to be sprayed over. So unfortunately that leaves me with 60% of the car needing to be taken all the way down, and then the rest of it will be a little bit more smooth sailing. One thing I do need to figure out is there are a couple of portions in the car that are this bad. I'm not sure how this like wear spot is so isolated, but there's like 5 or 6 of those throughout the car. And looking up in here, you can see that the paint is gone, it's all cracked off, the primer is gone, and then this little spot right there is like the coat right over the fiberglass. So I basically have to sand everything down into this kind of coat right here without breaking through that onto the fiberglass. Up here, I've done a good amount of it. This is pretty much ready to go, although we have patches here. It's definitely smooth. But up here, we had another one of the spots where this was actually worn down. Like the paint started eating away at the fiberglass here. So you could see a lot of resin throughout this section. And I had to sand that down and then fill it and just keep doing that until I got it built up and nice and sturdy. I also put some more resin in those areas that needed it, but that was a pain. This was the worst spot on the whole car, so all I have to do is sand this little patch down and this up here, and then that whole section is good to go. Just have to cut down that side of the car and then the front. So when going about sanding this car, I used 2 different methods. I did use an electric sander, but I had it on the lowest setting because I really didn't want to cut through this fiberglass. So I used that to cut off the really harsh abrasive top layer, and then once it got down to the primer, then I started hand sanding to make sure I got a clean finish and then blocked it. I'm so happy things like Postmates exist, because I would not be going upstairs and cooking food looking like this. But we have a nice bench here. Look at that. Gourmet. I ate way more than I should. I'm feeling super sluggish right now, but we have to get this thing done today. It's Thursday, I work tomorrow, and then I'm out of town the next 2 days, and the car's going in for paint on Monday. So I've gotten most of it done. If we look through here, all this is good. So I basically just have this quarter in this door left. It's pretty late, but I think I'm gonna work well into the night tonight. Believe it or not, this is what the garage looks like after like probably 2 hours of cleaning. This thing is a absolute mess. I feel like I'm on the surface of Mars, but we are making some progress. I don't know how I'm going to get the dust out of all these things I have on the sides, but the car is done, so that's all I care about. All right, I think I've done it just in the nick of time too. We have to get this on the trailer tomorrow to get paint. So you can see how much paint I actually had to take off this car. Pretty much everything from the waistline trim area down. It was unbelievably hard. I was genuinely surprised at how thick the paint was on this car. I mean, it was thicker than most cars I think I've ever seen, which I didn't expect being on fiberglass, but we have it all cleaned up. We have one seat in there so the painter can move it around. I'm just going to take a good round of the car here. Everything has been blocked and leveled out, although you see high and low spots. I think it was just inconsistent to begin with. So we have all that. I think I'm going to be painting the window trims here by myself, so I have those over here in the corner. I'll take care of that while the car is off getting paint, but I think we're good to go. Alright, so I asked the painter to send me a couple videos of the car as it's getting done, and little did I know he has an Android. Now, I'm an iPhone guy, so the video came across looking absolutely terrible, but I feel like it's pretty cool to see the process with the car all pulled apart and taped off, so here we go. Everything's gone relatively smooth so far. The valance doesn't fit perfectly, but it's a handmade fiberglass reproduction part, so I didn't expect it to. It's going to sit a little bit too low. My only other option is to cut two pieces off and re-drill it. I don't think I'm going to do that right now, but the bumper only has one place it can sit because these have to come up and connect to the bottom of it. So I've mapped out my hole, and it's now time for the part I have been afraid of the most. So I had to relocate the screws for this because for some reason they came right here, when in the factory one there's a middle and then outside, so there's no way to get to where this was. So I had to drill two holes and kind of feed a nut up around back and relocate this, and then I've got my new spot for the hole right here. So I guess here goes. Alright, let's make sure we're right where we wanted. That hurt. That really hurt. Luckily, I was pretty meticulous with taking everything off and labeling it really well, so most everything that I put on the car after the paint went on just as smoothly as taking it off. So it was just a couple-day process of just bolting everything on, make sure everything is aligned, and then we have all these graphics at the very end, which I thought was a pretty satisfying part and really capped the car off. But now we are finished, so let's take a look.